All right, hello everybody out there. Today, I'm get the honor of talking to everybody about right sizing solar for you, especially in the van life community, which is definitely a hot topic. So I'm going to start the PowerPoint, and then I'm going to go through this, and then I'll open it up to questions at the end if anybody's still hanging around. So you can see the topic right here of right sizing solar for you, and really what I'm getting at is solar inverter and lithium for your camping style, whatever that may be. So first up, I'm going to go through a couple of things. You can see the system that's over here on the right just prior to an install. And really, everybody wants a massive system, something like this that can power everything that they could possibly ever want to run inside of their van, and then have unlimited budget and all that kind of good stuff. And then they would put it out there. In reality, what we could probably really afford is that. But, regardless of what the budget is and what the overall style is that we're looking for, it really comes down to three big things: having the imagination, the learning, and the patience to figure out what the right solar system is for you, yourself, and your camping style. And so we'll go through that, and then I'll give you some closing thoughts at the end of that. So first up, a little bit about myself. Obviously, you saw my name, Chris Killeen. In the top right-hand corner, you can see in past life, I used to be a navigator in the Air Force, where I got to fly the C-130, which was amazing. I had all kinds of awesome opportunities along the way, one of which you can see on the left-hand side, and that's when I was on exchange in Australia and got to fly C-130s around there. On the backside of that 4-year tour in Sydney, I got to go do the U.S. Air Force Weapons School, which is pretty much the top gun of the Air Force, and it graduates high-level planners and instructors of instructors. But along the way, we all wanted to go travel. So when I exited the Air Force and after retiring, we loaded up everybody in a big RV because you see I have bigger kids, and we traveled the United States for a year was the plan. We wanted to continue going. But that younger one there is now a sophomore in high school and definitely wanted to have that experience. But just like everything else, COVID got into the way while we were traveling around. We actually were in California, and they were getting ready to shut down the Bay Area around San Francisco. And I got a Facebook pop-up ad, and you know how the algorithms are. So we ended up going to Athens, Texas, which introduced me into the path of where I am right now. So from there, we went to Athens, and I became a NRVIA certified inspector. I've been doing that for 3 years now. I then went back and then got my registered RV technician, as well as went through the very first solar course. That was a awesome course for me to go through because I definitely wanted to get into the solar side of things. I've been doing a lot of self-study with things like Will Prowse's book, DIY Solar, which is an amazing read for those getting into this lifestyle. But that one took me to the next step. And then I started doing multiple jobs. And as a veteran, over 50 installations so far, and now I've been lucky enough to partner with Explorers.life. So hopefully those of you who already heard Nate speak or are going to hear him speak later, you'll see what we're talking about there. And now I'm a certified electrical installer for that team as well. And all of that has got me into the lifestyle that I'm getting ready to talk to y'all about right now. This is my son, Declan. This is us on the very first installation that I did. And I learned so much there about talking with different people like you to design a system that is right for that individual, for you and what you're going to do. And obviously, this guy has all kinds of space available to him on his massive fifth wheel, but all the considerations are still there. And so we're going to talk through those as we continue through this, and then we'll start getting into the different facets of it. But we all got to start somewhere. And first up, you got to start with some imagination, right? Your imagination is going to carry you through this journey. Your camping style, the space that you have, and the energy that you're going to bring to this. So first up in the imagination is your camping style. So what's your vision? Is it going to be camping in a location in the top left where you have the beautiful lake laid out in front of you with mountains all around? Is it going to be way overlanding, way out in the outback somewhere, as you can see in the bottom left around the fire? because it's smaller and it's set in the desert, kind of somewhere out west on BLM land, so you can camp for free. And then there's our van, right? How can we actually load what we want to do, or load what we want to have to be able to do what we want to do in a tiny space, right? Or is the reality going to be something more like that in the top right? So multiple days out into the outback, but then maybe I need a night in the campground to recharge my batteries, to dump my tanks, and then maybe take a nice long hot shower. And then the big factor that's going to govern your camping style is your budget. So the budget to spend at a campground can become super expensive, but it is spread out for a long time. However, your budget for solar long term is actually going to be less, but it hits you more upfront. But you can do certain things along the way to help minimize the impact of that on your wallet, and then hopefully get you into the location that you want to be. So now we've talked about our camping style. Let's look into the space that you actually have to work with. So the space is going to dictate a lot of the things that you can or can't do. So if you have a conversion van, obviously you can map that thing out beforehand. So you kind of go in knowing how you're going to convert the van and be able to maximize the energy capacity that you're going to produce and then store it later on. If you have an OEM, meaning something from a manufacturer like Winnebago or Thor or any of the other multitude of vans that are coming out nowadays, then you may not have a whole lot of available space. They may have crammed it completely full with all of the other niceties, and then now it becomes even trickier to be able to put stuff in different locations. And then there are others. You know, if it's a hybrid type thing where maybe you bought it and you're going to redo it a little bit and modify a cabinet or something, then that becomes a different way of using your imagination on the available space to do things. And so these pictures that you see here are, you know, in the bigger center left, that's a van, and it doesn't look like I got a whole lot of space there, but I also know that underneath each side of that, I could probably do things, such as the Enduro batteries that you can see center top. They're lithium batteries, so I can use them in any different direction. They don't have to be pointing straight up anymore, so I can move them around. I can hide them under a sink. I can definitely put them in different places. On the bottom center, you can see a inverter. So that inverter that is actually laying on its back but elevated is just another way of using imagination to maximize the space. This customer actually had just a pass-through in his travel trailer, wanted to maximize all the space that he had, and that inverter needs to be either vertical on its back or on its side. It can't actually be hung upside down. So we kind of went through different scenarios and figured out, well, we can just hang it, kind of suspend it, and that actually became an awesome place for him. If it was flipped on its side, such as in the bottom left-hand picture, that's definitely another way that you can do it. So now I'm minimizing the impact on the space that I have, but being able to create a system that can meet my budget and allow me to go do out and do the things we want to do. But in order to apply all this imagination, I have to have energy. So your available energy has got to sustain you through this entire time of developing your system. There's going to be so much research, and this talk may actually be one of those things. But hopefully we can become a resource for where you go in the future. But the research can sometimes be maddening because there's so many different YouTubers and influencers and blogs and marketing techniques that are pointing you in different directions. But don't let it overwhelm you. The marketing machine is huge in and amongst itself. You may actually start your search looking for solar and an inverter and lithium upfits to your van, and then end up buying something like this Yeti that's over on the top right that provides you all you really need, and that actually matches your budget. But regardless of how much your energy is and how much you're bringing to this, don't forget your why. What's your why that's out there? Because ultimately, we're all getting into the van life or the RV life or whatever it is from a perspective of what lifestyle do we actually want to live. So don't forget your why along the way. And then there's going to be the next aspect of it, learning. It never stops. So we're going to go through the charging systems that are available to you and some storage, and then the various sites for instruction that can help out. So charging systems. The rule of thumb, whatever you do, is that you want to kind of have 3 different ways to charge. So as you are driving would be one, when you're parked is another with shore power, and then hopefully you got some type of alternate energy source along the way. So for shore power, you can just kind of see the plug in the top left-hand corner of the slide. Shore power can either come from an RV park or it can come from a generator, such as that Honda 2000 that you see right there. If I'm using the alternator, then there are different things that I've got to consider. Do I want to protect the alternator if I'm charging lithium? So I need something like that Lithium BIM 225 to basically do some timeshare with the alternator so that I don't burn it out. Or do I need a DC to DC charger, which is another way of not overtaxing the alternator and providing a steady stream of charging to go into my battery system, regardless of whether I have a lithium or a lead acid type battery. And then there's all the generators that are out there. You could have something big like what's on my RV, this QG 5500. It's a 5500 watt generator. There are some vans that I've seen that have 3,000 and 4,000 watt generators built into them, which definitely provides an easy way to access some energy and recharge our batteries for when we go out dry camping, if we don't want to hear all of that noise. If we want something super quiet, we could go with the Honda or some other type of super small portable generators that really don't weigh that much. But now I have to figure out where I'm going to carry that thing. So it's a trade-off the whole time and everything that I'm thinking about. And then there's solar. So the whole point of the talk today. So you can see the blue solar charge controller that's got a little star on it. It's the MPPT 100/30. That means it can take up to 100 volts and it will put out 30 amps. That's the blue solar, not the smart solar, and there is a difference. One you can see on your phone, which would be the top right, the smart solar display, and one you can't, and that's that blue solar. These are just a couple of examples of different things that are out there. And Victron, which is who makes these, is just one of the many manufacturers who are out in the solar arena. And that charge controller is what you need to actually take the solar panels, which are indicated by what's on top of the trailer in the center bottom and the labels on the bottom right. So if I need to size a system, one of the things that I'm going to worry about is what solar panels do I want to buy, but it all comes back to that charge controller. So there are 3 different facets of a system: the batteries, which we'll talk about here in a minute, the inverter, if you're going to have that option, and then the charge controller. Those are the 3 things that are going to be centerpieces of your system. So as you go through your power needs analysis, which is an individual thing that I can definitely help with later, but there's so many resources out on the internet to help you do that, you're going to find out that your total capacity of batteries and how many batteries is going to be dictated by what your power needs are. So how many things do you get to do at the same time? So the big thing that I'll ask first time customer is, do you want to run the air conditioner? Because right off the bat, that knocks out 90% of the other inverters that are out there. Unless they go with a 12-volt air conditioner, that's a whole different story. But the MultiPlus that you can see up there is a 12-volt, 3,000 watt that can also charge. It actually charges all types of batteries, including lithium. And then that becomes a frame or frame piece for the overall installation. The solar controller is another frame piece for the installation. The panels are actually cheap comparatively. You want to make sure you size a solar controller to give you a little bit of expansion. So maybe your initial budget and the allowable space aren't something to go right home about, right? But if you buy a solar controller that you can add to later, then it definitely gives you a whole lot of freedom to be able to add panels and minimize labor and installation costs at another time. So for instance, I'll have a lot of customers who will ask me, what are your recommendations based on these 200 amp hours of batteries? I'll typically recommend buying the solar controller 100/50, which is capable of 700 watts. And then they will only probably put 400 watts up there. But the good thing is that now the wiring is in place, the solar controller is in place, and it's easy to add 2 to 3 more panels later on to be able to maximize the charging capacity of that charge controller. Be the same thing for the inverter. If you buy a 1000 watt inverter that basically you can just plug something into, but then really what you want to do overall is be able to run your air conditioner or run every single outlet inside your van, then you'll end up going back and buying another inverter later and incurring a whole lot more cost for wiring. So looking at your inverter and solar controller are definitely going to be the set pieces of your charging system. And then if budget really is in your way, then you can always do something like a portable solar panel, solar kit. These foldable suitcase panels typically come with their own solar controller, and then they can plug directly onto your battery with alligator clips, or you could put what's called a SAE plug in and connect that to your batteries, and then it's easy to plug and unplug, and you can't mess it up because there's only one way to do it. And that definitely gives you some capacity for being able to charge your systems overall. But there's no good in charging anything if you don't have some type of storage. So all the different storage that's available to you starts with the batteries, obviously. So multiple battery types that are out there, and I'll cover a few of these. So dead center is a lead acid battery, and that's the wet style. So if any of you still have these, then you know the pain of every month popping that lid and actually making sure that the water, the electrolytes inside are still covering all the plates that are inside the battery. If not, you need to add distilled water and charge it through a full cycle, and then that gets the electrolysis process going again. And then in the center bottom, you have the AGM, the deep cycle AGM, and this actually has a whole lot more energy available, or energy capacity inside of it. But both of these have drawbacks because of cycle life. You may have heard the misnomer that every time you go below 50%, you damage your battery. Well, in reality, every time you run a cycle in a battery, regardless of what type it is, the manufacturer has a table that actually specifies how many cycles you're going to get out of it. So for lead acid and AGM, if you run cycles of 20 to 30% and really never get below 50%, you'll prolong the life. So for a lead acid battery, you could easily achieve 5 years if you take care of it and keep the water above the cells and don't discharge it below 50% over and over and over again. Same for AGMs. They can actually get out to 8 years, especially if they're well taken care of. But in reality, we're human, so we tend to over discharge because we're out in the middle of nowhere enjoying the beautiful scenery that we're finally able to be out and do. And we leave a light on and we wake up the next morning and our battery's dead. So that's just one in the many issues that we'll face as we continue forward. Lithium takes a lot of that away from a lot of those worries away, because it can be repeatedly drawn down to 10% or more, depending on the manufacturer and what they recommend there as well. But 8,000 to 10,000 cycles is not unheard of, which means you now have a true lifetime type battery. And then going back to what I said earlier, like what you can see in the top right with these Enduro lithium batteries is the space. So remember imagination and space and how you could reuse it. This customer actually wanted me to put these in her 4x4 van, which did not have a lot of space to it. The previous batteries were actually hung underneath the van, AGMs that were outside, but since we were moving these inside, I had to find a good spot for them. And it actually had just enough room to fit these 2 Enduro batteries inside the little casing that went around her water heater. So they don't off gas. There's no issue with any type of contact with electrical or anything because of the way that we installed them, so they will never move. But now she's able to not worry so much when she's off grid in Alaska and then recharging these with her solar every single day. But if you have a lot of space, you can do something like in the bottom left with the Battle Born Game Changer 3s. 270 amp hours each for these. So they're kind of big and kind of heavy. They weigh the same as that AGM battery in the middle, about 80 pounds. But for 540 amp hours, this guy and his diesel pusher Class C definitely is good to go for a while. But regardless of which type of battery you have, you need to be able to monitor it. So keeping it above that 50%, if that's what you're trying to do, or at least knowing how much longer you have before your batteries run out, is a key aspect of harnessing energy and then storing it away. So the shunt is the way to go for this. So what you can see in the top left is the Victron Smart Shunt. A couple of different models of this one, but what it does is actually isolate and count all of the electrons going back into the negative side of the battery terminal. And then takes that information and represents it via an app on your phone. So with Victron Connect on your phone, you can actually look and see what the state of charge is. And what you can see here is this 99%, as well as the voltage of the battery itself. And then what current is going on. So it's 10 amps of current going into his battery. And then time remaining infinite, which is a dynamic setting. And it basically gives it back to you slowly, and it takes it away from you super fast, depending on what's happening at that time. So at the point that we took this shot, he was charging. So it was what happens inside the app is it assumes that you are going to continue doing that forever. So as long as that situation never changes, then he had infinite. If not, it would actually say something like 10 hours and 4 minutes. Or if you had the game changers in the bottom left, it would say something like 28 days, depending on how you're actually using your batteries at that time. Other ways you can monitor it, if you had something like what's called a Victron Serbo GX, it can broadcast all of your data for your entire system over Victron remote monitoring, which you can see in the internet picture that's just to the right of that flat screen display. Or you can have the flat screen display that plugs into the servo as well, which is just directly underneath the shunt. And there it's telling you all kinds of information, but it takes the battery information from the smart shunt and will represent it there as well. So multiple different ways to monitor your battery, all of which are super important to be able to camp the best way that you want to camp. So the learning aspect of it, as I talked about, never stopped. But so let's get into some of the instruction sources that are out there. YouTube obviously is a huge source of instruction, and you can learn a lot of it on there. But I would caution you against looking for something like the guy on the top right who's giving you the step-by-step easy DIY install versus somebody that is super reputable in the industry. So the two on the top left that I would like to talk about are Will Prowse. First, he wrote the book on DIY solar power, but he has an amazing YouTube channel that breaks down batteries and actually cuts them apart so he can show the makeup of the battery, so you know later on that it's been tested by somebody who doesn't have any skin in the game. And then there's Nate's channel at Explorers.life. So Nate and Steph partnered with this, and they have the Explorers.life company, but the YouTube channel is amazing for building out a van. He breaks everything down into the smallest step and then can put it all together into a complete van build. And that's just YouTube. The manufacturer is also an amazing source of instruction. So here I've got two screenshots from Dometic, which now owns GoPower, and then Victron Energy as well. So GoPower has some pretty good information for their own things that you can apply to different sources and applications. But the Victron Energy side is amazing. There's actually all kinds of downloads, manuals, brochures, different schematics that you can download. And you can even go so far as to open up your own free Victron professional account, when then you'll get access to all of the videos that all the people like me and all the professional installers actually go watch as part of our training. So an amazing resource there at Victron, and then they also have their own community forum where you can ask questions and you'll have all kinds of input from certified installers. And then there's blogs that are out there. So, you know, it could be a blog like what you see on RedArc, which is in the bottom center. And it's definitely reputable as far as the information that you're going to get on there. However, you know, a blog from somebody that just created their system may or may not be the one that you want to apply. Then you can actually go out and get trained, right? So like I did at the NRVTA, I got RV technician, and then the solar certification, which is definitely 5 days well worth it, especially if you're going to design and install your own system. Then you actually can bounce it against the entire community there of people who you know have been trained and you know where they come from for feedback on your system prior to installing it. But then there's what you used to know. You may be able to apply all the skills that you learned in a previous life, such as this guy in the bottom left. Maybe he was an aircraft mechanic before. Maybe he was an electrical engineer. Maybe he was an electrician in the military or some other job. But all those things can apply into the learning and instruction of what you're doing. But regardless of where you are in that whole journey and learning and applying your imagination, you got to have patience. And it comes in bursts, definitely. So here's why you have to have patience. Once you decide on the system, you need to go through the process of installing it and understanding all the pain that comes with that. So when we get into installation, it is super intricate. All the different types of vans and RVs there's a wide variance out there, not only in the size and the shape, but also by the model that you get. So the picture in the center top may not be what you see in a van. This is a 50 amp installation as indicated by the red and the black wire. So he has a line 1 and a line 2. Typically in the vans, smaller travel trailers, then you're typically only going to have the line 1. But you may see other things that are out there. So just to the right of that distribution box where the circuit breakers are, that's a hardwired EMS. So if you already have a hardwired EMS, especially if you bought an OEM van, then that's something that would have to be taken into consideration during the installation process. On the top right, there's a power converter. So if you're super old school, you still have your converter that's built into the distribution or breaker box, or it could be a standalone that's part of that whole system. But that's something that you're going to have to take care of. Will it charge the type of batteries that you want to have? So if you have lithium batteries, the old converters can charge them, but they'll only get you about 80-85%. I've learned this and practiced it because I went the cheap way and installed solar and a solar controller first, and it said that'll top my lithium up. But then as soon as I didn't have sunlight for 2 days, I was running my generator to charge up my lithium batteries, and I never got over 85%. And then there's wiring, all kinds of wiring and more wiring and more wiring, and it's hidden. So if you have a van that's not your build, if it's your build, you have the luxury of knowing where everything is, and you can map it out. And then later on, if you need to make a change, you know where it is, right? If you buy an OEM van, you don't know where the wiring is. So if you want to add something to it, sometimes you're actually taking a chance on punching that hole through that specific wall in that specific location. And that can be kind of scary. But then coming up with the wiring, proper sizing, proper fusing is definitely an aspect of the installation that you're going to want to take your research time on, do the learning, and then apply the patience there as well. There are resources such as Explorers.life. They have the wiring diagram kits, as you can see in the center bottom, and those definitely aid a lot to the installation process. At least going in there that you've got the right size wiring for what system you're installing, and that's fused properly. As long as the installation is done correctly, then you're going to be good to go. Because what you don't want to happen is what you can see in the bottom right. That what should be a white wire is now a crispy black at the beginning and then going down. And this is a Victron Multiplus 2 installation gone wrong. And definitely one that a lot of the distributors have seen when installations aren't done all the way up to spec. So that white line, that's the neutral, is going into the far left-hand side of both of those green terminal blocks. But the one that's on the right that's all burned up didn't get enough stripped off of it. So typically when distributors see this, it's only maybe half an inch is stripped off that line when it's supposed to be 0.7 or more. Obviously, you don't want it too much more because you don't want a whole bunch of exposed line coming out. But 0.7 is the minimum. And that's to get it up into those clips and get a good return on the neutral. Otherwise, it'll burn out like you just seen. So if you're ready to tackle the installation, you've got the right stuff. Well, now you got to have all the tools, right? So everything has a main use, and then there are supporting use tools as well. So you're going to need a ladder. You got to get up on top of the rig every now and then, especially if you're going to install those solar panels. So you'll be up and down multiple times, taking all the different equipment that you'll need to make holes, tape everything down, apply the sealant, whatever it is you need to do. So ladder, step one. And then all your supporting tools are going to come along with it. Everything you didn't think you need, you'll end up needing at some point in that installation. So the list of Makita information or tools up on the top right are all different tools that I've used in various installations. And then drill bits. It's amazing the amount of drill bits that I go through, especially when I'm going through metal. All the different manufacturers use different screw sizes as well. So you can see all the different screw heads, screw bits that I've used down in the bottom right. And then there are the special tools. So the little tool with orange handles is a crimper for ferrules, which make life so easy when you crimp them on solar cable and different things that you want to have a good bite to for a long period of time. They'll gather all that wire together, and then there's no way of failing in the installation. And then there's lug crimps. So what you can see, the two in the center, the one that's on the left, I bought that first because it was cheaper and I had to get an installation done. It lasted a grand total of 2 installations, and then hydraulic fluid leaked all over the place. So then I went ahead and dropped money for the big one that's in the center there. So a little over $200, but as a hydraulic press, it gives me great presence and peace of mind knowing that every time I crimp a lug, that it has, multiple, I think it's a 20-ton press, 20 tons of pressure that's actually compressing that lug onto that copper line. So it's essentially giving it a perfect cold fuse, cold weld. And then in the bottom left is the laptop. You may not have thought about it, but everybody's got to have some type of programming capability if you're going to get into things like this. So to program the Victron inverter system, especially if you add things like the servo and all that, you're going to have to configure it all. So you're going to need access to a laptop, access to the internet to download all the different updates that go along with it, and be able to manage the installation overall. But it's not insurmountable. And ultimately, there's a goal to all this, right? And the goal is this. You want a nice, clean, functional, safe installation. All the installations that are surrounding the screen right now were presented to me by different customers who had different spatial requirements, had different needs and power requirements, all of which drove where we could install something and where it was going to work well, still look good. And then most importantly of all for me is that it's safe. When they're driving down the road, I know that it's going to work. I know it's going to work well, and it's not going to burn their house down. So that when you take your trailer or van, as you can see for the one in the middle, that everything that's hidden away in multiple different locations is going to do what it needs to do, what you want it to do at that time. So with that, what we've done so far is we talked about all the installation, but that's not where it stops, right? There's still maintenance that has to happen. As you drive down the road, everything's shaking and starts to come apart. So you need to tighten it every now and then. There are going to be issues that you're going to face along the way, some of which may make sense, some may not. The two pictures that you can see on the left and center are solar panels gone wrong. One is where the solar panel actually, started catching on fire for whatever reason. And then on the right-hand side is where his MC4 connectors actually kind of blew apart, which was interesting. This is the first time I'd ever seen that, which was all we had to do is strip them off, put a new connector on, and he was good to go again. But the guy on the left definitely had a problem. So troubleshooting becomes another big aspect of it. And I always like to show this little video that I put together regarding an automatic transfer switch. Now, you may or may not have an automatic transfer switch in your van. I've worked on some that do. I've worked on some that have a manual transfer switch, meaning they plug their shore power cord into their generator. But everybody has a slightly different look. For those who have never seen it, this is the inside of an automatic transfer switch. Obviously, right now, no power applied to it. But what you can see on the right side of this picture
This is the generator line in. This is coming out of his own generator. On the left side is shore power coming in. And that is feeding both of these circuits, switches, which will automatically engage magnetically based on where they actually sense the electricity coming into the switch. These are both wired together. And then one line coming out, which is feeding the breaker box. A pretty simple design. And so for all the Facebook experts who provide all of us all the answers, and they automatically say automatic transfer switch, there is a simple test. Which one of these magnets engages and stays engaged right here? And they will automatically, that's the clunk that you hear whenever this gets powered. So if you suspect automatic transfer switch, all you have to do is turn off the power to the coach, take off this lid, and if one of these is stuck in and will not disengage, then yes, your automatic transfer switch has failed, at least this portion of it. If both of these are nice and loose, it's still good, and your problem lies somewhere else.
So we've gone over a whole bunch of different things today. Most importantly is kind of revisiting your why, because you're going to need to hit that a few times as you go through the three big things. So when you're right sizing your solar system, you want to apply your imagination. What is it that you have? What's your available space? What's your available budget? How can you do different things with what you have? And then get into the learning, right? What's the different instruction that's available to us? What's my patience as I apply all of that? And then go through that installation process. And then you can actually get to something like this at the end where, you've got a 12-volt air conditioner, and maybe that's, one thing that you're wanting to do, and then maximize the solar that can actually recharge while you're on the road, especially if you're heading down to Baja or north end to Canada during the summer. But now let's apply some resources to that. Lots of things available to you. One that I'd like to call out for you is Enduro Battery. They're offering a code. If you use VanLife10, you can get 10% off of those Enduro batteries. If you are in the Tucson area for any reason, just reference this talk or Van Life Summit, and I'll give you 10% off installation labor. Explorus.life. I'm sure Nate and Steph talked to you all about that, but I would definitely go to their website and look at it. I talked to you earlier about Victron and GoPower. Those are incredible resources that I would highly encourage everybody to go do some research on. And then Will Prowse's YouTube channel, especially if you're going to buy batteries. It doesn't matter if you want to buy a Battleborn, like you can see in this picture, or Enduro, or anything else. Go check out Will Prowse's information. He breaks down all of the different batteries that you can buy on Amazon as well, so you'll know what you're getting into. And then finally, this talk was one of them that were kind of sponsored by Victron as well, so there is a giveaway for that. And at the end of that, the team will do the drawing, and there's a smart shunt that will be given away, and I'll be sending that to whoever that lucky winner is. So appreciate everybody's time. Today we talked about right sizing solar for you, making sure that you get the right solar system, inverter, and lithium for your camping style. And hopefully this proved valuable for your time, and you can use it in the future. That's my email address if you need to get a hold of me for any reason, especially if you wanted to come by and get an installation done, or just reach out and ask some questions, and I'm happy to help size y'all through different things. And with that, I'll take any questions if there's anybody up. So for everybody that's been sending all these texts, I couldn't see any of them until now, since I just closed this out. So for Bob, you asked me to keep it a little more basic layman's language. I hope I didn't go too in depth for you there, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to follow up with you. I love seeing all the Canadians on here. I've been working more and more with y'all in the last couple of weeks before everybody starts to head out. And then for Tom and Sherry, they're getting into a wind conversation. That is definitely an area that could do a lot more exploration. But right now, all the wind generators, the turbines that I've seen are super noisy. So you pick your poison there. Do you want to hear a generator go, or do you want to hear the wind turbine turning as well? Yeah, from England, from Austin, from Oklahoma. You see a Charity. I used to live in Oklahoma. Laurel's building out a van in Arizona. Good for you. We're here to help if you need it. Anybody have any final questions before I exit out? I have no opinion on dry flush. Yeah, I've seen a lot of those different videos about the RV toilet paper versus that. So now CS13R has got to tell everybody about dry flush. All right, if there's no other solar questions, I'll end this, but please don't hesitate to reach out at my email address right there, and I'll get back with you and definitely help you get the information you need.